Hi, Eric. Delighted to be with you and your audience today. I'm Mary O'Connor, MD. I'm an orthopedic surgeon by background, long career at the Mayo Clinic, where I have numerous leadership roles, and I carry my Mayo Clinic value, the needs of the patient come first, with me through my other journeys. And I retired from Mayo in 2015 when I went to Yale to create an integrated musculoskeletal center. And I left that traditional center in early 21 to co-found Vori Health. We are a nationwide virtual first musculoskeletal medical practice. And our focus is to help patients get better without surgery in the comfort and convenience of their own home. So we have doctors, physical therapists, nurse practitioners, health coaches, registered dietitian, and we practice a very holistic model, recognizing that things like not a good sleep pattern is going to impact your musculoskeletal pain, right? An anti-inflammatory diet is going to help. And really making the change that I feel is so critical in healthcare that honestly can't be made in a traditional system.
I love it. I'm sitting here. I have a TENS unit on my
See?
shoulder right now because I do jujitsu.
Yeah.
And so my muscular skeletal system is constantly under great stress. And so I'd be curious for somebody like me who I consider myself extremely healthy, right? I'm 32 years old, so I'm very, very close to the prime of my life. Um, for somebody who is in a high impact sport like this, what are some of those things that you would suggest that somebody like me do in order to reduce injury and strengthen, especially the neck, right? Here I
Yeah.
am like, there's that knot right on the side of the scapula that just is always bugging me. What's your advice there? Just totally selfishly asking you for my own benefit.
All right. So you really would probably benefit from doing some exercises to your neck that you can easily do. They're basically called McKenzie exercises that decrease the flexion stress because we spend so much of our life like this, right? You spend your
Yep.
life with your head down, you're bent over your computer or whatever, right? And so it's just such a simple exercise. Put your fingers on your chin, try to put your head in neutral, and you push back. Okay. And that takes stress off the the soft tissues that are overstressed from you bending your neck forward. And I mean, it's this a philosophy of of how to manage your soft tissues because people tend to forget about how important the soft tissues are. Because it's the soft tissues that then allow your joints to get a little bit out of line. And when I hear you say this story, I'm thinking, he needs to get on top of this so that 5 and 10 years down the road, you don't have chronic neck problems because it's your neck that's probably the culprit that's causing your stiffness and spasm in your trapezius, in your muscles up here. So,
Hmm.
and of course, sleep, proper nutrition. You already exercise, like you already do a lot of really, really good things. But sometimes people like you overdo it. That might not be you, Eric, or it could be you.
It's me.
I'm just saying.
It's me. We have an ice bath, like a really nice ice bath in our backyard. Stainless steel, wood. It's got a
Mhm.
chiller in it. It keeps it at like 34 degrees. And so we got that strictly for our
Yeah.
jujitsu injuries. It was constant elbow, shoulder, knee, hip, back, all of it like is at risk when we're rolling. So my wife right now is convinced that she has SI problems.
Mhm.
And she's postpartum, not even a year. And she's so frustrated with herself. Oh, like I wish my body could bounce back, bounce back, bounce back. She looks incredible, right? And everybody is like, "Well, you didn't have a baby." And so she's on that same route. What's your opinion on GLP-1 peptides like BPC 157?
All right. So, GLP-1, so the weight loss medications for the audience like Ozempic and these other drugs are are really honestly going to be a major medical breakthrough in terms of weight loss. What's the problem? The problem is that if people don't change their lifestyles, when they stop taking the medication, the weight comes back on. And there's side effects with the meds, just like there's going to be a side effect with any medication. So, wow, for the first time ever, we've seen statistics that show a decline in the rate of obesity in this country, which honestly is huge. Okay. Um, and I think is largely driven by the GLP-1s. People have to recognize that they still need to do the work of having a healthier lifestyle, increasing their level of movement. I use the word movement instead of exercise because exercise can be too intimidating to people. And in my world, it is so critically important because here's what happens. People get joint pain, especially knee pain. That leads to decreased physical activity. Then you gain weight because you're still eating the same. That added weight puts more pressure on the joint. And now you're in this vicious cycle. Joint pain, less activity, more weight gain. And what happens? End stage arthritis, you need a joint replacement. Okay, now, orthopedic surgeons and hospitals make their bread and butter off of joint replacements, but that's not the point, right? We don't want patients having to go through costly and surgeries that do carry some risk. But that's not the only thing that happens. When you are less active and you gain weight, you develop diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, and depression. And so now we have this sick patient who's got terrible knees. Their knees are shot, right? But they're also obese and their blood pressure's high and they're diabetic. And now their surgical risks go way up. And the other thing I'll add, anybody can get trapped in this medical vicious cycle that I just described. Affluent white male CEO, but women and individuals of color and those in rural America are more likely to get trapped. Why? Because of the social determinants of health that influence the medical vicious cycle. Do I have access to a grocery store with reasonably priced fresh fruit and vegetables? Is it safe for me to go out and walk in my neighborhood after work or when it's twilight, right? These things matter. And then surrounding the social determinants are public and private policies. We created payment models for joint replacements that did not offer any kind of risk adjustment for patients. I'll translate. What's the surgeon do? The surgeon looks at that obese woman who's diabetic and who has hypertension and says, I know your knees are terrible and you have horrible knee pain. And yes, we could think about knee replacement surgery, but go lose weight first. Okay, because you're going to have to stay in the hospital if I do knee replacement surgery on you. You're not going to be able to go home the same day, or you don't have the social supported home to go home the same day. All that is going to cost more, and that's going to reflect poorly on the bundled payment that the hospital gets for the surgery. It's created this perverse incentive to cherry pick healthy patients and lemon drop less healthy patients. So that was a lot to unpack. The whole point is we need to get upstream from this. We need to promote wellness in communities. We need to look at social determinants, public and private policies, and we need to empower individuals to be better advocates for their own health.
So there's an element of, right, we're at this new year at the time of this recording, and a lot of people get into new habits because of the social convention of setting New Year's resolutions. And I've never really bought into that. That wasn't something that my family followed closely. And so I thankfully wasn't stuck in that trap. If I didn't want to do something, I would just not do it. I don't know where I get that from. It's probably just a byproduct of my strong personality. But you know as well as I do that complex change, right? Meaningful change comes from a fundamental change in belief, right? Your belief about yourself, your belief, your self narrative about what you're capable of doing and who you are. How do we proliferate a message that allows people to shift their beliefs towards healthier living when they are just exposed to all the same paradigms that they have been
Mhm.
exposed to for their entire lives?
Um, I'll answer in a couple ways. I think the first important point is they have to believe that change is possible, because there's so much messaging that's like, it's too late for you.
Mm.
You're too old to make a meaningful change, or you're too fat. You're just too obese. I
You
mean, like,
can't that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right, is poison for the mind, right? Like that.
exactly, exactly. But that's one aspect. But I think that really, shrinking the change, shaping the path for the change that is needed, regardless of what the change is. Okay. And tying in the emotion to it is what is so important. So, like, people can't make huge changes overnight. You got to pick just, even if it's just one thing, right? And focus on that. And so I would say to patients, look, 10 minutes. Can you walk 10 minutes? You know, or get on the stationary bike or the elliptical, whatever you have. Like for me, I tend to pretty religiously get on the elliptical every day. And what also helps motivate me to do that, that's when I watch stupid TV shows, right? I don't have time to watch TV in the rest of my life. So, I'll watch um, a series that I like. Slow horses. I just finished Slow Horses. That was great.
So
So,
good
I mean,
for
yeah, I
good.
mean, I'll find something that interests me, and then in the morning, when I'm getting up, and that's my time to go do it, there's just a little bit extra motivation because I'm ready to, be entertained. So I can combine something that gives me a little plus on the reward side with the exercise.
Yeah, I think to add to that as well, if no one has ever read Atomic Habits by James Clear, right, it's top of the list if you want to make a meaningful change in your life, because the starting point for all of the research that he builds into a framework for adjusting your habits is the audit. You just sit down and you just write down all of the things that you do. And when people do that, they start to become self-aware of like, oh wow, I had like dinner number 2 today. Like, oh, why did I do that? And then they start to the feedback loop starts to shed light on those things that are negative in their life, and it allows them to then start to pick one thing and go, okay, I'm going to try and replace that habit and stack it with something that's good. So that would be one of my best recommendations. I've had this great wonderful variety of zany characters on my show, and they all kind of come down to the same 3 to 5 things. I'm just going to be like, hey, like, mission accomplished. We found the secret to a good life, from all the best people. So I'm transitioning. I had a podcast yesterday, and it was the first time that I introduced a new prompt for the show. And it was all about mystical experiences. And so I'm curious if you have ever had what you would consider a mystical experience. And some examples include um, Christians, Hindus, Jains, they all talk about this feeling in your heart, the feeling of the spirit, right? This feeling of that you get from following like the eightfold path in Buddhism or ahimsa, right? This burning in your bosom, so to speak. Or literally visions. The lady that I talked to yesterday was a journalist, has been for 25 years. And she said a Ouija board told her to contact an old friend, and they've been married for 40 years now. So like stuff like that, or like a DMT experience, ayahuasca trips. Do you have anything like that you might be able to speak to on mystical experiences?
Mm. When I was a child, I literally had this kind of deja vu, that I and and I was little, I was just a little girl, that we were in a car with my dad, and he stepped out and the car started going down a hill, like out of control down a hill. And I woke up. I was sleeping and I woke up because I was so frightened. And literally, like 2 days later, he we're in the car, he stops at a bakery to pick up something, and I don't know, he didn't have the car in park. I don't know what it was, and the car starts moving, and we start going down a hill, and there was a woman sitting on her porch. It was the summertime, and she starts screaming at her son to come out. There's a car moving, and there are a bunch of children in the car. And her son comes out, kind of this t-shirt on, his belt's not buckled. I mean, I never forget. And he's all kind of disheveled, and he's running, and he gets in the car just as my father, he comes out of the bakery and realizes what's happening. And he's running, and the other guy's running. And the son gets to the car first, hops in, and puts the brake on. And I was like, oh, I've seen this. I've seen this before. It was so funny. I mean, it was so vivid, you know. My mother had a near-death experience that she didn't share with me until she was, an older adult. And I've always been fascinated by people having, you know, near-death, what we would use the term near-death experience, or kind of what is that transition? So we could explore it. I mean, it's like, yeah, there's going to be 3 to 5 things. What makes a good life? I mean, it's all going to center around love, family, faith, personal fulfillment. I mean, you're right. You're right on that.
Um,
Yeah.
so I have one more question for you, um, mostly because I want to keep to our time because we only booked 30 minutes. So I've asked this question a lot. It's one of my favorite ones. If you could go back in time, right, to a time that you were really vulnerable, and you could slip a little piece of paper into your pocket
Oh,
that had some advice on it. How old are you? What is happening? And what is the advice that you're going to give to your younger self?
um, that's a great question. And I think I'd probably go back to maybe my mid-20s, because I probably had this like 15-year time span. Only because I remember kind of like when I was 40, all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I am so done with worrying about what other people think of me. And I think this is even more important for women. And in particular, I've I have tried with my daughters, like, it doesn't matter what people think of you. Well, it matters what your mother and father think of you, but right? But but be authentic to yourself. Know who you are and go out there and be that person. That's what matters. Stop worrying about what other people think of you. Like, screw them. I mean, like, forget it. Screw them. Otherwise, you are hostage to them, and you are living your life in fear of what other people think of you. That's like one of my mantras with my children. No fear. We have no fear. Fear does not exist in our world, of course. That's not completely true, but you get the gist, right? Because that's really at least what I found in my journey. And it was so um, empowering for me when I got there. I'm like, wow, this burden is lifted from me. Wow, this is good. I don't have to go carry this stuff around with me.
Hmm.
Good. So that's what I would do. I mean, I would like, couldn't I have gotten there earlier? Wouldn't it have been nice to have gotten there earlier? Yes, it would
Or
have been.
did you get there because of all that worry? You needed that 20 years of worry in order to have that profound shift. I often wonder if I got the advice, would I even take it?
You know what? I think that most people, if they get the advice enough and they're receptive to listening, it would make a change earlier, because there's a role model. I hope I'm a role model to my children. There's a role model that they can see that allows them to make the change sooner. So, yes, I think that like, for me, it probably would have been helpful, but I didn't have, there weren't like role models for me. There were very few women orthopedic surgeons that came before me.
Yeah, the source of authority often is the thing that helps you actually take the advice. And if it was you, obviously in like a spacesuit going through and giving the advice, you would take it. But if you had a female orthopedic surgeon give you that advice, it would have sunk in that much more. And I'm optimistic about my ability to like, wisdom is one of my core values in my life. What does that mean? How do you learn from other people's mistakes? And unfortunately, in all of my conversations with all of the wisest people that I know, you have to make some of those mistakes, it turns out, to actually internalize the wisdom that you end up getting from people.
Unfortunately, as we know, the old saying, you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes, and that still holds true.
Yeah. Mary, where can everyone find you?
Well, they can find my company at vorihealth.com. They can find me on LinkedIn. Can I highlight my book?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
please. I
Is
hope
it
you
right
will.
here? Right here.
Boy, that is a thick book. That's a text. It looks like a textbook.
It is. It's a book for the average woman and for people that love women to buy for the women in their lives, about how they can better advocate for their own health. So I've been in the health equity space for a long time. Remember, I'm a minority, an underrepresented minority in my professional field as a
Mm.
woman in orthopedic surgery, which is dominated by white males. And it's not that they're not good people and they're trying to take good care of their patients, but there are definite barriers that can arise between women as patients and male doctors, in particular male surgeons. So I've experienced that throughout my professional career with women coming to see me, and I was just like, what? Like, this is how you were treated? Like, didn't your surgeon answer these questions? I mean, there's just these communication barriers where people tend to minimize symptoms that women bring because, of course, the bias is that we're kind of histrionic and we're going to exaggerate our symptoms. And all of that basically boils down to women getting healthcare that's not as good. So I wrote this book. Well, I edited this book with my co-editor. It's called Taking Care of You, The Empowered Woman's Guide to Better Health, because we wanted the everyday woman to have better knowledge about how she can advocate for her own health needs. So we have 111 expert women contributors. The chapters are a huge number of chapters. And when we talk about medical conditions, we highlight why they matter for women, highlighting that there are a lot of sex differences in certain diseases. Okay, so we'll separate sex and gender, right? I am biologically different than you. There's no way around that. Okay. And females and women have traditionally been under researched in medicine. So we find that a lot of the medications that are put out on the market, the ones that are yanked off the market after, remember, millions and millions and millions of dollars of clinical trials and FDA approval and this whole complex process, why are they pulled from the post market? Is because of adverse effects in women.
Hmm.
So anyway, that's just part of my little passion project to write this labor of love book. And people can find it online, Amazon, Mayo Clinic Press. So
Good.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
my pleasure.
This has been the Pulse Ox podcast. Please, if you found this episode valuable, give us a like on Spotify and share it with a friend.